Today I'm going to show you how to make rice pilaf. That is not only a dish, but also a preparation method in which rice or other grains are sauteed with aromatics and steamed with a flavorful broth or bouillon. For this recipe you will need half a cup of onions, small diced, 1 clove of garlic minced, a tablespoon of olive oil, 1 cup of rice or any other grain that you care to use. I'm using parboiled rice. Parboiled or converted rice is rice that is soaked, steamed, and dried in a husk after harvest but before milling. And it gives you a rice that's light yellow instead of really white and not as starchy. You'll also need 1 tablespoon of toasted orzo. I'm going to be using a bouillon cube for this recipe, 1 tablespoon of butter, and 2 cups of liquid. If you want to use chicken stock instead, you can eliminate the bouillon cube. Now I'm going to show you how to toast the orzo. I put it into a pan, let it sit on a flame for about 3 to 5 minutes until it's nice and golden brown. Just make sure it doesn't burn. Now let's make our rice pilaf. You're going to need a 2-quart pot for this recipe. I would prefer one that is taller rather than wider, so that the rice cooks more evenly and the liquid doesn't evaporate as fast. You're also going to need a lid to go with it. I'm going to heat up my pan, and I don't want it to be scorching hot because I'm going to be sweating my onions. I want them to cook nice and slow. I want them to become translucent and soft, but I do not want them to get any color. So as the oil gets hotter and hotter, I'm actually going to reduce the flame a little bit so I can make sure that it doesn't get too high and burn the onions. After they start to sizzle a little bit in that oil, I'm going to stir it so that I make sure that all of the onions are coated with that tablespoon of fat that is in the bottom of the pan. You don't want to continuously stir that because you want to make sure that the onions have direct contact with the heat. And so the more you stir it, the less contact they have with the heat, the longer they're going to take to cook. The next step is going to be to check to see if my onions are done cooking. We are looking for them to become translucent, be soft and tender. You want to be patient at this stage because you want to make sure that you're not burning your onions because you don't want to add any color. The reason for this is because of the taste, as well as you're going to see the burnt onions in your rice if that happens, and so you want to avoid that. After about 5 to 6 minutes, my onions are tender. I'm going to add in my minced garlic. The garlic is only going to need about 30 seconds to cook in that hot fat, so you have to be prepared for your next step at this point. After about 30 seconds, you're going to start to smell a beautiful aroma of garlic. You're going to get ready to add your rice and your orzo. You could take a look at my garlic and my onion right now. You can see that my onions are nice and opaque or transparent, and my garlic has a beautiful perfume, but you see no browning on it. So now I'm going to add my rice and my orzo to the pot. And what we're going to do for about 1 to 2 minutes is we are going to toast the rice. Toasting the rice is a very important step in this process. It adds a little bit of flavor, but it also creates a shell around each of the grains, allowing the grain to slowly absorb any of that liquid without getting soggy. So you won't have mushy rice, you're going to have perfect grains of rice in your dish. After you've toasted your rice, you're going to add your liquid. I'm going to be using 1 bouillon cube with my 2 cups of water. Remember, the ratio is 2 cups of liquid to 1 cup of rice. Before I add my liquid, I want to make sure that I break down my bouillon cube a little bit so that it is dissolved all the way throughout the recipe. If you don't do that, you're going to have like a clump of bouillon at the end when the rice dish is completed. I'm going to season it with a little bit of salt and pepper. Just stir it well to make sure that everything is combined. And then I'm going to add my liquid. 2 cups of water. If you have chicken stock or vegetable stock, you can absolutely use that instead of the bouillon cube. But this is what I had today, and this is what we use in the school to show you this method. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this liquid up to a boil. I'm going to make sure that there's no grains of rice around the side, and then I'm going to wait for this to come up to a boil. And when I say boil, I do not just mean a couple of bubbles at the top. I'm looking for a rigorous amount of bubbles at the top. You can see I have some bubbles that are starting to form. I'm going to go in, I'm just going to stir it a little bit just so I can make sure that all the grains are not sticking together or sticking to the bottom of the pot. And then I'm going to let it come to that complete boil. All right, so it's taken about 1 or 2 minutes, but here comes the bubbles that I'm looking for, right? When it starts to boil, I'm going to add my 1 tablespoon of butter to the top. I'm going to put a lid on the pot. I'm going to lower the flame as low as it will possibly go without turning off. And I'm going to look at the time and I'm going to count 18 minutes. 18 minutes has passed. You can see that my rice is ready. All of the water has been absorbed. You can see that there's little tiny bubble holes inside the bottom of my pot. I'm going to just stir it around with a fork. We don't like to use a spoon for this. We like to fluff our rice with a fork because the rice can go through the tines of the fork and really be fluffed up. Whereas with a spoon, the rice kernels can actually be crushed or mashed. So that's our dish. This is rice pilaf. Goes really well with any chicken dish or stew. Very simple to make and very delicious. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this recipe. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel.